Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be building a derive macro in Rust that's going to basically produce the builder pattern. So right now all I have is like an empty library, but we're going to, let's make an example. I guess we'll call it simple, and just kind of outline what the exact like goal is. So generally what I'm looking for is to have a struct, let's call it foo, that has some fields. Field A, which is, I don't know, U32. Field B, which is a Boolean. Field C, which is a string. Yeah, we can ignore that error, but let's set the main function because we do need that one. Okay. Yeah, so we have this, and then I want to be able to say derive. We'll say debug, first of all, but I also want to say derive builder. And like obviously it's complaining about the can I do LSP stop? I can. Okay. I did just change my my Vim config quite a bit, so I don't really know what all of this stuff does anymore. But right, so we have this struct called foo, and we're deriving builder for it, which will give us foo builder, and then we can say dot field A, 69 dot field B true, and field C is hello world. I can type. And then we should be able to call dot build, and we should get a foo back. Standard builder pattern, right? Builder pattern is just you get methods that are similar to the name of the field themselves. So that can either be like set field A or with field A or something like that. And then you get, once you have all of that constructed, then you can build. One thing I want to do, potentially, right? So we have this builder. I also want to have like a type state builder or something like that, which will enforce at compile time that this build call will work. So do I have an example like that off the top of my head? So we have for Basalt, that's the programming competition system that I work on. We have a tool called Erudite, and an Erudite, no, not here, it's still NPR, but this guy, if actually, you know what, we can even docs.rs/erudite. Here, this under where is it, text context builder, you see there's a bunch of generics here, and so it's got these two generics, but then it's got tests equals missing tests and run command equals missing run command. Both those two fields are required to be set. So for tests, it needs to be called at least one time, and then for run command, it needs to be called. And so what it does is, so for most of the commands, it just kind of, or most of the fields, it just kind of sets those fields and moves on. But for the run command field, it will change it. So you can only call the run command method function on a test context builder that does not have the run command set. And then once you do call it, you get a different test context builder that has that like notes that you have called this function at least once. And so that means that whenever we come down to our we do the same thing on roughly the same thing on test. And that means that once we come down to our build method, you see it's only implemented when tests have been set and the run command has been set. And so that's a type state builder, meaning that if you don't specify the run command, for example, this build method will fail to compile, which is important. So I want to do something like that, but only if the caller of the library opts into that. So by default, it'll be just a builder. And maybe instead of doing type state builder, we'll say like builder type state or something like that. I'm not sure what that'll look like yet. But in that case, this would work. But I think with the default builder, it's going to be probably build returns a, that's not how you do that, but build returns a result of foo and some sort of build error. Build error. And then you would have to unwrap on this. Or like handle the error appropriately. And that is really just because like if you don't call this method and you're not using a type state builder, you have no way to know that this is going to fail. But the trade-off of using a type state builder is that it makes it really annoying to pass around in like functions and stuff. So I think we'll default to just using normal builder because they're also just significantly simpler. Another thing I want to do is allow you to specify default. Probably like builder default is true. That's probably how that's going to work. And then this way, if you don't specify field B, it will just default to true. And then one of the other things I want to do is field D, for example, is an option. What's a type that we haven't used? It doesn't really matter. I32. This is automatically optional, right? So if you don't specify it, it defaults to none. It's effectively an implied version of that. And I think that's probably just the nicest API here. I do think we should have some sort of method of requiring this to be passed as an option. So making this field still required, maybe even literally just saying required. And then I think even the ability to just omit the default value is useful too, and it'll just use the default implementation if it exists. It'll just set it to field B is default. Okay. And specifically, if this is required, then you have to pass in field D sum 42, like that. Okay, so let's start implementing it. And to start off, we're gonna ignore all of the special handling. I want to just be able to, I want to define these methods and be able to call them. For now, that is like the most basic implementation that I want. And also a note that the return type of this needs to be a foo builder. I want it to include the name of the type in it, and then I want this type to be nameable and be able to be passed around and such. Okay. Now let's get to implementing it. So, as I said, we have just a simple library here. Why is there a target folder? Oh, Rust Analyzer is putting it in there? That's interesting. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, it's fine. Oh yeah, the LSP is running again. I do have, actually, let me double check that. I should have, Cargo have my, yeah, I can show that. Cargo, this. I have Cargo set my target directory, or I have my target directory set for Cargo set to be like this specific path, and that just like makes all build artifacts end up in the same spot. It tends to help with compilation times, but I don't think it's super important. It does make it easier to like clean everything on my computer though. So this is an empty library. We need to go into cargo toml, and we need to say lib proc macro is true. And this is how we tell the Rust compiler that this is a proc macro. Proc macro is a procedural macro. It's code that you write that takes in a token stream and outputs a different token stream. And then in here, we need to say proc macro derive, and then it's going to be the name of the derive, which is builder. And so now we need the function, which is going to be builder, and it's going to accept a input, which is a token stream from proc macro, which is a crate that effectively gets automatically added when you set your library to be a proc macro. And then for now, we're going to just do. Okay, so this needs to be pub, and this needs to output a token stream. Okay, and actually we can even just say input for now. And that will just, this is a proc macro, a derive macro specifically, that ends up doing nothing. So now if I think we should be able to say cargo expand, example simple, and I don't need tests. Right, and so you can see, can I find derive macro builder? Right, we need to actually include that. In fact, it is, hello? It is telling me exactly what to include. So we just need to include the proc macro itself. Right, and so now you're seeing, now you can see it's complaining because we don't have these items. And if we cargo expand, you'll see we just get the exact input that we defined. Foo redefined here. Oh, right, okay, yeah, so a derived macro doesn't actually need to output the original source. So you'll see it literally outputs the source twice. And except it only does the debug implementation one time. So, let's come into our source librs, and here, so building a token stream from scratch is a pain in the ass. So to get around that, we're gonna add a couple of crates. We're gonna add proc macro 2, which is a crate that adds like some more modern stuff. I'm not sure what its relation is to proc macro. Proc macro 2. Like it's a wrapper, but I don't know if it's like maybe something that plans to replace proc macro or something. But I don't know. It's pretty commonly used, and it's a good wrapper crate that gives a lot of useful tools. So we're gonna add proc macro. We're gonna add quote, which is actually linked here, and gives us, let's go to the docs, and gives us specifically a macro called quote, which allows us to write Rust code and have it automatically convert into a token stream. And part of that is that you can have replacements, like this expr is whatever is here, and it can be replaced by like any token stream, and it's also got expansion. Kind of, it's fairly similar to like macro variables within a declarative macro. That's the macro underscore rules. Yeah, so it's got like repetition stuff too. Okay, so we're gonna add quote, and then we're gonna add sin, which is another very commonly used crate that gives a bunch of information or a bunch of tools related to parsing proc macro input. And all of these tools are actually, I think they're literally all developed by David Tolnay. Yeah, who does a lot of the work with proc macros. And I mean, he really does like a lot of the super core Rust stuff. I think he also does like Surdy and all of that stuff. But yeah, so all of this stuff is actually pretty tightly integrated, and we're going to be using it quite a bit. I mean, like you see that this here talks about derive input. This is literally a structure that we're going to use that automatically parses the entire struct definition for us. So we're going to add those. I don't think we need any of the extra features, but we'll add them if we need them. Okay. Now, here, let's just add a quote. So that this quote macro, like I said, will allow you to write basically plain Rust, and it will be translated into the token stream that we need. And to be specific, it is the token stream from, can we... Yeah, so you see it is it's the token stream from proc macro 2. What I like to do is I like to say use proc macro 2 token stream as token stream 2, just so I can like pass it around and name it, and then we can just call into on this. I guess I don't need to import this yet, but we'll definitely be doing that later when we have like functions. But for now, let's just say I don't know, impl. I think we can even say struct is called, right, so one of the problems that comes up a lot when doing really any sort of compiler work in any language is you can't just use the names because they're almost always like keywords. but it's fine. We'll pretend like struct is what I want. Input. So input is a token stream. We need to parse this. So input is syn parse macro input. I think it is input as derive input. Like that. And so that'll parse it into this derive input, which we can then say ident to get the struct. We'll even call it ident. So we can say ident, and here we can say like fn builder, and then let's do builder is going to be format ident, which is a function from quote that allows you to write a format string. So we can do this builder, and it takes in ident, and it allows you effectively to just format a string, and it converts it to an identifier. In fact, I think we can just show what it looks like or what it actually does. No, it doesn't really seem to work. But building an ident by hand is a little bit annoying. So this kind of just helps with that. And then we can say fn builder takes nothing and returns a builder. And then this is going to be to do. And so now if we cargo expand this, you'll see it literally does what we want. So we create a impl foo, has a function builder, and it returns a foo builder, which is kind of what we established we wanted here. So we go back to the example. We see that this is expecting a foo builder. Cannot find type foo. Okay, right. So foo builder doesn't exist. So we need to say pub. We'll have to figure out what the visibility is. I think maybe we say just take the. I don't know if we can do input here. It'd be cool if we could do something like this, but I don't think we can. Let input viz is going to be input.viz, and then I think we can say input viz, which is the visibility. So that's going to be like pub or pub crate or pub super or pub with some specific path, or I think it'll be nothing, and that'll just emit no tokens. So we can do viz struct builder, which is actually hash builder, and it's going to be empty for now. So if we do this, you'll see we get struct foo builder, but then if we were to make this public, then we get a pub struct. And this is probably also something that we'll want to configure. So let's even do like, let's call this viz, because it doesn't need to be specific. And then we'll say like to do custom visibility of builder. And that visibility should also probably appear here, because we want this builder to be public if the builder itself is public. Okay. What else? This debug is a little bit noisy. I wish that there was a way for me to not emit certain expansions, but I think for now we'll just disable the debug. So now we can see exactly what's happening. Also, this tool cargo expand is literally just expanding the macros in here. Not quite all of the way, because some of them just don't matter. Although I guess in this specific example it does. But yeah, so it just expands the tokens, or expands into just tokens and formats it. You can install it with cargo install cargo expand. Okay, so now that we have this, we need to actually implement the fields on the builder. So that'll involve let's do builder contents and say let builder contents is builder contents, and we'll make a function that takes in the input by reference. And so now we can say a function builder contents, and this takes in the derive input. So input is derive input, and it returns a token stream 2. And this is where we want that that use proc macro 2 token stream as token stream 2. And that just gives us a way to distinguish between the two. In reality, it might be a little bit easier or nicer to like have this somehow like the original token stream be differentiated instead of having token stream 2, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, so here I think what we're gonna do, use of partial, oh, why aren't you can just be a reference, and you can also just be a reference. And then here you're complaining because we need to return something, right? So input, so here is the thing. You can put a derive, let's replace this with a to do for now. You can put a derive on any sort of item. So you can have a derive builder on pub enum foo or bar, or a builder on a pub union foo or baz. But we don't really want to support that. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to have. Certainly not on a union. I would argue that maybe some sort of implementation of builder for an enum could be cool, right? So like you could say let bar is a bar builder. It would actually be kind of cool if you could say bar and then like have a variant like A is U32, B is a alpha of U32, and beta of U64. It'd be cool if you could say bar A builder, and then you have to pass in something like 69 or something like that. But I think we'll come back to that for now. So what we'll do is we'll just say like we only support struct. So we can do that with what is that? It's input dot data is a field. No, input. So there's data ident and adders in generic. So I guess it is under data. And then we can match on this, I think. Yeah. Okay. So we can match. Ooh, we can. No. What am I doing? We can match on this. And here, if we get an enum or a data, we can do. So there's a notion of like a sin error. So sin error, which we can create a new one of new span. No, we're just gonna do a new. And so for the span, a span, if you don't know, is like it's a pointer to a certain like string in, or a pointer to a certain region in a string. So in the case of here, a span highlights this token, or this token, or this token, or this token. You can kind of think of a span as the, like if you have a string, the range that goes in here is the span. So like 1, 2, or 5, this is a span, or this is the span. And so every token has an attached span, and that's where error messages are handled. So like this error right here, or this warning, is pointing at this, and it does that by saying that that is the span for this warning. And so we're going to do that same thing here. by taking enum, right, so we obviously can't use enum, data enum. We're going to say data enum dot enum token. Enums are not supported. And then same thing here. And this one's going to be data union. This is going to be enum is union. Not that I really expect somebody to try to derive a builder for a union specifically, but it doesn't really matter. And so here we can say to compile error, and then say unwrap, not unwrap, into return that. And okay, so this needs a span, so we can just call .span on this, and that needs to be imported feature or imported trait. Something here. Cool. So now this is going to say to do, or this is an error, and I'm just gonna return this data struct. I'm going to do like that. This can be a reference. This effectively acts as like an unwrapped struct. So moving forward, we can just go under the assumption that there is a structure here. And to do that, we're actually going to pass in data struct here instead of the derive input. And that gives us a reference to a data struct. And actually, this is already a reference, so we don't need that reference there. And then here we can import that. Okay. Fantastic. Great. So now we've got, we'll just call this S. So now we've got S. S contains fields, which we can then map into something. So oh, actually, you know what? Fields is probably also matchable. Yes, because in a struct, you can either have named fields, unnamed fields, or a unit. So you can have bar, which takes in a U32, or you can have struct baz, which takes nothing. And neither one of these are terribly good for neither one of these are terribly good for a builder, so I think we're just gonna also error with those. And so what I like to do is have a result of token stream 2. And that way I can just, if we run into an unnamed field, we can just say return error, sin error new. We'll say, I don't know where we'll put this. I think we should take in the identifier as well. And that needs to be imported. Is that the right one? I think it needs to be a sin ident, actually. And here we can say ident.span. And then for the message, we can say builder only supports named fields. And of course, we do it period. And the same thing here. And actually, I would rather say unit structs are not supported, and unnamed fields are not supported. And spell it correctly, of course. This error is not good because we need to say to compile error. And the reason I do that instead of just having the error type return a sin error is because this gives me a little bit more flexibility. I can combine it in whatever way I want, or I can add anything if I need to. So I think just having a token stream is fine. Okay, so now let's keep on with that unwrap pattern and say let fields named is this, like that. And so now fields named is an iterator, I think. So we have named and we have brace token. The brace token is what this delimiter is. And I don't know that like it actually matters. I think that's really more if you want to like highlight something about it. But okay, so we've got named, and you'll see named is of type punctuated. It's a punctuated field, and it's punctuated by commas. So we can loop over this. So for field in this, and this gives us a field. And then here we can say, actually we can even do something a little bit nicer and say map, or into, we can't do into iter, but we can say iter, map, we can take the F, and then we can say for the field, we want to get the name, ident. It's an option because it could be an unnamed field. It uses the same struct for both. So we can expect here, field is not unnamed. Checked above. And that just kind of documents why it's safe to do this. And now we can say ident is this. And then we can say let type is going to be f.tie, and then this one is guaranteed, except what we also want to do is actually we'll leave this like this, but then we're going to return quote, and we're going to say, excuse me, ident, hash ident, and it's going to be of type standard option tie. Let me just confirm that that is the correct location for option. It is. Okay, cool. And so you'll notice here that I'm doing this : stood option instead of just calling it option. And that's because the way that proc macros work, if what did I just do? I did nothing. If I wanted to use an option in here and I just used the option word, the user of the library could somewhere up here just say like type option is unit, or even like have the generic and just completely break the code. But like this, it doesn't matter what the user has in their library, as long as they're including stood. We could alternatively actually use core here, so no matter, even if they're not even using the standard library, it's fine. So I think we'll do that. It really doesn't matter. I don't expect anybody to use this without the standard library, but at least now we have the option. No pun intended. Okay, actually, let me just be certain that it is in core. I'm pretty sure it is. I don't know why it wouldn't be, but yes, it is in core. Distinction between core is that like core is compiler, core is compiler internals that doesn't require on like standard or on like an operating system or anything, versus stood, which needs to interact with an operating system, sort of. A little bit of hand waving there, but that's okay. So now this is going to be fields, and I don't even want to call this builder contents. I want to call this builder def, which is going to be like the definition of the builder. Yeah, and then we can do builder here. And I guess let's even return both builder and builder tokens. And so we'll return builder and quote and here we'll say impl, or not impl, we'll say struct. Actually, you know what? Let's not do that. I take that back. We will just have the contents, because that way we don't have to pass in things like the visibility and all of that, just extra stuff. We can just return the contents, and that's fine. Now we can say quote. Actually, I wonder if we can say collect here, just into a token stream. And then we wrap it with OK. And then now we need to borrow here and here. I don't think that works, but we can say as ref. And now we should be constructing the builder correctly. And so you'll notice if we cargo expand, we do have an issue because I forgot to finish this code. Great, so this needs to accept the ident. And builder contents. Cannot find function builder contents in this scope. Did I forget to? Yeah. Okay, builder contents. Oh, and I removed the, that's fine. So let builder is format ident. It's going to take the identifier and we're going to say builder. And that gives us the builder. And then builder contents here, we do have an issue because we have a result of token stream, and we need to just have the token stream. And we can't do a question mark here. So I guess let's just say match on this. And we say okay, C goes to C, error goes to E, and we're going to return E. A little bit annoying to have to do that manually, but it's fine. We'll probably end up cleaning this up quite a bit in a little bit, but I want to get the basic implementation done. Okay, borrowing here is fine. Actually, I'd rather do that. Now, we have a builder that has the options. That's perfect. And we don't need to do, we don't need to worry about that same kind of core option thing here, because this type, even if the user redefines it, it will still be what the user requested by doing that. And actually, you can see that the built-in to-do macro also uses this : core blah 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 stuff that we just added. Okay, so now that we have these fields, we can add the methods. So to do that, I want to say impl builder, and then for each one of these we're going to say viz, and we're going to do this in sort of a useful way. Can I actually, I would almost prefer to, instead of doing this map, just kind of do this inline. So I'm gonna do that. Let's see, was that actually a useful inline? Not really. Okay, let's do this. And actually, we don't even need this right now, so let's comment that out. This match can go away. This is no longer going to return an error. It's just going to return the tokens like that. And then we can get rid of that. This comma has to go away, so does this one. And that's the syntax error. Okay. Into, oh yeah, and now we also need to call into. Cool. So now we have these fields here. We do still need to map them. Named iter map field to this. And actually, if we look at the quote crate, under quote, he did say something about indexing into a tuple. What was this about? While interpolating indices of a tuple or a struct, we need them to appear as non-suffix. Oh no, this is unrelated. Okay. Yeah, so what we'll do is we will take this iterator. We're going to return the ident and the type. Or actually, we're going to do the same quote thing. This one was fine. And so now we have fields named, which is just an iterator over token streams. And we can put this here. So this is going to be just fields. We don't need to specify named, like that. And actually, even further, I want to say let fields is this, and that way we can reuse this fields named. Fields named is this guy. Then we get fields is this. Parenthesis. And we need to say dot named. What is the other field on here? Oh, it's just the brace token. That's fine. Okay. The trait map blah 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 to tokens is not satisfied. Is it not? Do we need to collect it? It probably doesn't know what to collect into. So we're going to say a token stream 2. Okay. So now we've collected, or we've created the fields, and we've started the implementation for the builder. For the builder itself, what we're going to do is say let methods. Actually, let's call these functions. And say token stream 2. Or even a vector of them, is a fields named dot iter map takes the field and it actually we don't need a vector, it's fine, and we can collect. This is gonna be a quote. It's gonna be similar, so we're gonna take the identifier, we're gonna take the type like that. We're going to take ident, the type. Do we need anything else? What else is on here? Ident, type, and visibility. We don't care about the visibility, I think. We will care about the attributes. I don't know what mutability means, actually. What is this? Field mutability. None. Is this something I don't know about? This is not right. This. Oh, I had seen this. Okay, this is an interesting thing. But it's very far from being implemented, so we don't need to worry about that. Oop. Okay. Right, so for now we're just gonna do this. We're gonna say fn, we're gonna say viz fn ident. And it's going to accept. I like to call it ident. I don't know if that's going to cause any issues, but we're going to do this for now. And we're going to accept tie, and then we're going to return a self. And in here, it's going to be self dot ident equals some hash tie. And that is well, we also need to actually call that. That, I think, is literally the core of the builder. So if we expand, we'll see we get pubstruct foo. We get the builder gets created with all the correct fields, and then we have an implementation on that builder, which has those 3 fields listed, and they all accept the correct item, and return the return self Okay, so actually it's not quite right. Just realized this function definition is quite wrong. This needs to take a mutable self. This needs to be self, and then we need to return self. And that's another aspect of the builder pattern, actually, because this doesn't return self, this returns mutable self. If we come back to our... it's fine, let's go to our example. First of all, if we reopen this example, expected value found built-in type U32, not a value. If we expand, what do we get? Oh, right, so we don't want to say some type, we want to say some ident. And that way we can, we actually get the field to be used in here. Okay, so you'll notice there's, if I do this, we should be happy. What are we unhappy about? Oh, right, so build doesn't exist. That's fine. And this needs to be string from. So you'll notice, or maybe, there's a couple of different ways that you can do a builder. So we can have a struct builder. It doesn't actually matter. Let's just do impl foo builder. You can have a function called a that takes in a self, an owned version of self, and return the value, and returns an owned version of self. And what that does is it's self. It needs to be mutable. Self.v equals v, and it returns self. And let's just do that because it doesn't actually matter. So this builder owns self, and it returns an owned version of self. And usually you would implement stuff like clone on it so that it's a little bit nicer to use. Alternatively, you can take a mutable reference to self and the v and return a mutable reference to self. And it does, the implementation is the same, except this one consumes self. Or this one does not consume self, it just borrows self. Now the advantage is, for build, if you build and you accept an owned version of the builder, and you return foo in this case, you can actually consume the items in the builder. So like specifically this string. The U32 and the Boolean don't actually matter because they're copy and it doesn't cost anything really to duplicate that data. But the string, if it's like really long, you would have to reallocate that really long region of memory. But if you can just consume it, then you can do that. Then you don't actually have to do anything, you can just move it. However, if you were to, you can't mix these two. Or you can, it just makes the API really unergonomic. Because if you're using a mutable reference to self, and you're at this point, then you only have a mutable reference to self. You have no way to get the owned version of self, because this builder that returns self, and then you did this, and it immediately turned it into a mutable reference. So what I think we're going to do, strictly because of that, is we're going to keep it being an owned version of the builder. Just because I think that's a little bit more useful. The trade-off there is that it's a little bit more of a pain if you want to like use a loop to append items to it or something like that. But I think that's an okay trade-off. And it would be nice maybe in the future to have like maybe a type. So we say builder type. Or I guess really the better Rust thing would be kind. And then you could say maybe like, you would either say like type state, or maybe even type state, or kind is owned, or kind is like mutable or something, and that would get you through with this mutable reference versus owned versus the type state that we talked about earlier. But for now, we're just going to default to owned because that means that we don't need any additional trait requirements on these guys. Okay. Right, so now we need to implement the build method. And to do that, we can just say fn build will, and I did say we're going to consume self, so we can do this and that. And then actually, also, I think for API cleanliness, we're just going to say self and then say let mute this is self. This. And the only reason for that is that whenever you use the Rust doc on it, it does show that self is mutable, which is, I don't think that's, I think it's kind of just unnecessary to say that this has been annotated as being mutable, but whatever. This way it doesn't show that because it's noise in my mind. Okay, so we can say build, which consumes self, and it returns an ident, or it returns the ident, which is, in our case, is like foo. And in here, it's, it doesn't actually return ident, it returns result ident. And I want to say build error. We're going to define a custom build error structure. So we're going to say is struct build error, and not struct, it's going to be an enum. And all it's going to do is take build error variance. And then build error variance is going to be let build error variance, and this is going to be fields named dot iter map, and we're going to map this, if I can type, we're going to map these into format ident, and we're going to say missing f dot ident, and we're going to collect into a token stream. Not even a token stream, a vector of token stream, a vector of ident. Also, I'm not getting auto format for some. Oh, did I turn off? Yeah, I turned off the LSP, and I guess that breaks auto formatting. That's fine. The method span exists for that. What is your issue here? Oh, I guess it's... Oh, this needs to be unwrapped. My guess is there's something, some sort of magic that happens here to make this entire thing be the span of the identifier. Oh, and you need to not be a semicolon. Great. So now this can be just comma joined, I think. And we need to define the build error, which is going to be build error is going to be format ident. This build error. Call it build error. And here we're trying to move out. That's fine. We can do as ref. And build error variance needs a hash. The trait bound blah 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 to token is not satisfied. Why not? This is how you do like repetition, right? Constructing identifiers. Does this not like document? Okay, yeah, it does. So I am right about that. I mean, that can be a star. Oh, does it? It actually has to be a star. Okay, that's fine. Great, so now we have an error variant, and we can say for, let's just say like, I think all we need is let field names is fields named. Naming is getting a little bit gross, but that's fine. Iter map f ident. I think we should be able to reference here. Maybe. But that might be fine. And then in here we can say ident, and we can say for every field we're gonna have hash field names colon what is the right side gonna be? It's gonna be self dot field names dot unwrap or no, let's just do let actually I think we can say what is the here there's okay or yeah, so okay or accepts an error and then will give us a result. So we can say okay or, and then this one is going to be build error variance, and we need to qualify that with build error, and we can say question mark like that. And then if we cargo expand that, you'll see it looks like this. So we say self field a okay or yeah, self field a okay or this, and then a question mark, and then we return foo, which is exactly what we say. So now if we come back to our example, this should work. Right, so we are getting some complaints about we can actually just delete this. We're getting some complaints about naming, which is gonna be a bit of an issue. So we'll probably want to do some sort of automatic like case correction, I think. Or we could just tell it to not complain about that, but I do want it to be a little bit nicer. And then it needs to implement derive. That is important. Or not implement derive, implement debug. And probably like the generic error stuff. But for now we can derive debug. It's standard format debug. Like that. And so now we'll see this foo build error. You can see that that derive is also expanded, which is super cool. And let's see if we cargo check. Yeah, now we just have this one issue in here, which is not that full thing, but just that guy. So cargo check, now it just works. Let's add the, yeah, so you'll notice Rust Analyzer is still very unhappy with that and it needs to be restarted, but yeah, the variants are wrong, but that's fine. Let's do a debug. Expected enum result foo found struct foo. Where? Oh, right. So this needs to be wrapped with okay. Oh, that's why that didn't happen, because we need to check the example. Okay, so unused variable foo, that's fine. The fields are never read, that's also fine. And then the naming is wrong, that's also fine. But now if we debug foo, we should get A is 69, B is true, and C is hello world. So cargo run example simple. And we get not yet implemented. Fantastic. Where do we have it to do? Oh, for calling the builder itself. So for this, we're gonna need to create a new builder, and that can really be done as default. And then we'll just derive default for this builder. And actually, I don't think I want to derive default. I think let's just implement default manually. And that way we don't have to deal with any of the funky possibilities that might come about from the implementation of derive for default. So builder, we can say fn default is going to return a self, and it's going to be basically the same thing, except in all of this we're going to say none, like that, and we're not going to say okay ident, we're going to say builder, or really self, like that. Use of move field names. Right, so this needs to be collected into a vector because we're going to iterate it over it twice. Okay, so now we can construct a new builder. We can append the fields to it, and if we miss one, then we're going to unwrap on a missing field B. So if we look at crates.io crates 30, I know that they have like rename all. I want to see if it's got the dependency for that, or like how it actually handles the rename all. I think I have actually tried to look into this before, but I don't remember what the result of that was. Let's go, maybe it's internals. So lib has a bunch of stuff in it. Oh yeah, they do some really funky stuff with the internals. But that's fine. So we can say name. They honestly, it might just be done manually in here. I don't know. Let's look for rename all. Internals adders gets you rename all rules. Which is a bunch of rename rule. Okay, yeah, so this is definitely just done manually. Camel cases. Variant to lowercase plus variant of 1. Snake case is this. Yeah, it's just done manually. That's a little bit annoying. I have, what was I doing? I think it's called cased. Yeah, this guy. This is like a command line tool for changing casing. What did I use for here? I used something called convert case. What a great name, actually. This. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, okay, let's use it. Might as well. It doesn't seem terribly complicated. Cargo add convert case. Great. And then here, instead of using just build error variants, we will, in here, say, how do you actually use this? We use .toCase. So actually, this is a thing. Format, is there a format ident span? No, there's not. So there's format ident, which gives us an ident. Let ident, and we need to say toString, which will allocate the string, or it'll convert the identifier into a string specifically. And then we're gonna say toCase, and we're gonna say case Pascal. Yeah. And it wants us to import case, of course. Then we're gonna say ident.span, set span, and we're just gonna use f.ident.span, and we're gonna return ident. And that will just let us basically use the same span as before, but with a string. And so we lose that span information when we call toString. But now, if we cargo see the example, it no longer complains, and if we run it, then we get missing field B, and it's all in Pascal case, which is what you should have for an enum variant in Rust. So we've got the basic builder done. Put field B back, and we run it, and we're cool. So now let's, what is the next step to add? I think let's add the builder default. But before we do that, let's take like a 5-minute break, and we will be right back. We're back. Okay, so we're gonna add, support for default. So what we're gonna do, I think, is under this field's named, we're gonna do a little bit of pre-processing on that before we return this. So I think what we'll do is literally just, we don't really need the brace token, so we'll just say this map, I guess like parse field. And then we can really just collect this into a vector. Did we lose music? No, it's just quiet? Yeah. Okay, and then parse field is going to be a function that we define, which takes in a field. Great. Is a field. Bam. And actually, we can even say intuiter here. No, field is a reference, so we can use a reference. That's fine. We can say field.ident. We can just clone this. Unwrap. Unwrap. Clone. And then I wanna create like a struct called builder field, which has all of this information. So an ident is going to be an ident. That's fine. What other aspects of here do we care about? Field dot viz. I don't know that we actually need that, but I'm gonna keep it. Field, the type of the field, attributes we're gonna get rid of, type, or yeah, we already covered type. Attributes we're gonna get rid of because we're gonna parse them out, and then mutability is something we don't care about, and the colon is also something we don't care about. Was there anything else? No. So we just need the type, I guess. So the type is going to be a type, I think is probably the type of the type. Great. Ident is this, I'm going to say field, or builder field. Has ident, it's got field.viz.clone. And it's got tie, which is field.tie.clone. And this guy needs to return a builder field. And really, this is going to be impl from field for builder field. And by reference, of course. Implement. Like that. And this is going to be called value. And actually, let's do try from, so we can have a result. Self : error, and we say type error is something. It's going to be a token stream. 2. And this is going to be okay and okay. Great. Value ident is moved. That's fine. We can say, instead of unwrap clone, we can say clone unwrap. And I guess we can also just put this in line. I'm not sure why I didn't. Great. Now we can call builder field try from, and then we can collect into a result vec, and then the other thing, which we can then say a question mark, or I guess we collect into a result of whatever type. And then this doesn't need to be that guy. And we'll do a question mark, which we can even just put right there. Right, so currently this function does not return a result. That's fine. We just have to match here, which is a little bit gross, but it's not the end of the world. Okay, v goes to v, and error goes to return e.into with an arrow. So fields named is now a vector of build field, which means we don't even need to do this anymore. We can just say f.ident. By reference? That actually might not be necessary anymore. Same thing here. I suspect this reference is necessary. Ooh. And then what else? Same thing here. Ident here is going to be f.ident. We don't need this unwrap. We don't need this asref. Named f.ident. And that should do the same thing now. Cargo R example simple. Right, we still need this to be implemented, but for now, this should do the same thing. Okay. Did we not fix this, or have I just, like, not restarted this? Okay, I just haven't restarted that. That's fine. Okay. Cool. So now we need to actually add this attribute. And the way that you do an attribute, I think, is something like this. You have to register the list of attributes, but I don't remember how to do that. Oh, you say attributes like that. And that tells the compiler that it needs to send those attributes into this proc macro as well, or into this derive specifically. And so now it's no longer complaining about no longer complaining about this. It's just kind of gonna ignore it at this point. But we don't have to, so we can say default, and what it's gonna do is really just probably be a Boolean, I think. Or no, it's not. It's gonna be an option string. No, not quite. Let's say enum default option is going to be off default or value, and the value is going to be a string. And so off means that we don't ever default. Default means that we default using the default trait. And value means that we use whatever value to get to it. Although really, this is equivalent to value of standard maybe core. I don't know what default is part of. Rust default. This guy. Is it part of core? I don't see why it couldn't be, but it is. Okay, so core default. Core default default default. These two things are the same. So because of that, we can just have default be an option string. And so the string, if you just specify default without specifying the type of default, will default to this string. Let's do a const default is a string. I don't actually think you can do a string here, but that's fine. String from stir is from stir const. No, it's not. Okay, so this is gonna have to be a string. That's fine, or a stir. That's fine. Yeah. So I'm only doing this because the string is really long. Although really I'll just put that in place because that's fine. So default here is going to be value.tie dot or not tie dot what even is tie? Tie is a type. I wonder what you can get out of that. Because we will need to do some mild type parsing in order to handle things like option and vec. I don't know anything else that I super care to handle, but we're gonna see what that looks like. So default here is gonna be value.adders dot find. So adder should be like a vector of attribute. Yeah. Find. That's fine. We're gonna find. So we accept the attribute, and the attribute gives us, what does it give us? It gives us, wow, it's a reference to a reference of attribute. Fantastic. Returns the path that identifies the interpretation of this attribute. What does that mean? In the path, and path equals that. So path is what I want. I suspect this path is not the same as like an operating system path or like a file system path, but that's fine. Parse arguments to the attribute as a syntax tree. Parse with, parse nested meta. What do you have in here? Parse quote? I don't know how that works. What does any of this mean? So expert, what is expert? Expert is like a, oh, it's literally an expression. Okay. That's not quite what I want. I suspect there's a way to parse kind of using the more standard parsing thing. I just don't know what that is. Like obviously we can write our own parsing function for it, which maybe that's just what we do. Yeah, let's do that. So we're gonna say a dot parse. What does nested meta mean? Parse the arguments to the attribute, expecting it to follow the conventional structure used by most of Rust built-in attributes. Actually, this is probably what we want. Why are you highlighting so weirdly? Like, why is this highlighted? I don't know. So we're gonna parse nested meta logic. Parse nested. Okay. Let's go look at this function. It's part of syn. And let's say, what is it in? It's in syn adder. What? Syn adder attribute. There's no module called adder. That's fine. We can search attribute. Bam. Oh, maybe that module is like where it's defined and it's like re-exported or something. I don't know, but it doesn't really matter. That's fine. Parsing tokens from an attribute. Wait, parsing from tokens to attribute. Parses a unit struct with attributes. Okay. Right, so this is kind of what I'm planning on parsing. Parsing from attribute to structured arguments. Right, so this function is a little bit weird to me. Because it wants something like this. Or the example is specifically something like this. versus parse nested meta. Where's this called in this gigantic example? Parse nested meta takes in the meta. If meta path is ident, then we do a parenthesized. I see. So I'm kind of surprised that they don't seem to have a method of like parsing the more traditional just macro definition. But this is fine. So we'll use parse args. Yeah, so we'll say let builder args is or okay, yeah, so what we need to do a path is can I compare this against a string? No, we say dot is ident builder. So this finds the first attribute, which is a builder. It's an option. And if let sum builder adder is this. Let me say like let default is this. Otherwise we're gonna just say none. And then in here, and then we can even pass that there. In here we're gonna say let builder adder is builder adder dot parse args. And the way that this is gonna work is we're gonna say struct builder adder is going to be default is an option string. That's really gross. It's just gonna be an option string, I think. And we'll add more in a bit, but this is gonna implement parse from syn for builder adder. For builder adder. And this is a function which we can say let peak is input, or not peak, it's called look ahead, is input.lookahead1, and we're going to say input.lookahead1, or not, no, we're going to say lookahead.peak, and we're going to look for token. I don't know if there's a way to specifically look for an identifier, or for a specific identifier. So we're gonna just say input dot yeah, I don't actually know if there's a good way to do that, because peak gives us just a true or false if it's a specific token. What is syn ident peak? Peak any? Peak's an identifier including keywords. Oh, it'd be nice if there was. Are we in syn? We are still in syn. So ident has peak any, but I want to like peak for a specific identifier. Impl from ident for member. Oh, you're right. This is okay. Right, so there's all of this stuff. Ident X gives us parse any. Or parse any. Okay, so that just accepts any sort of identifier. We can parse it, of course. But I want to parse a specific identifier. What can you pass into peak? Peak accepts anything where it implements peak. Fantastic. Can I get to the definition of peak, please? No, I cannot. Great. Peak. I might be able to pass in a function, but I don't know. Okay, well, it's a seal type, so probably not. For end, I guess just look for the end. Wait, impl copy plus fn once. So it's a fn once, which takes a token marker and returns a t. I guess we don't need to do this. We can do this. Again, I don't know why it's highlighted. Can you stop highlighting? I don't like that. Okay, I guess we're gonna just suffer with that. So T here is a token marker. I don't know what a token marker actually is, and I can't click it, which is a little bit annoying. Impl peak for end. Impl token marker. Token marker is an empty enum, so I can't actually really use that. That's super kind. That's fine. So we'll say input parse. Like, see, this is what I don't really understand about this. Is like, I want only a specific identifier, and I don't know if there's even a way for me to do that. So that's fine. So let's say let ident is input.parse. And this is going to be an ident. And I'm going to say if ident is toString is going to be default, then we're going to say input.peak token equal sign. So if the next token is an equal sign, then we're going to say input.parse, and this is kind of the funky syntax, but how you can tell it to parse a single token. And we need to import token, and so this will parse the question mark that we just, or the equal sign that we just asked for. Right, so we still need to finish doing this. Let's say let value is this. Otherwise, we're gonna just do this. And then here we're gonna say to do, and that's gonna go. And then this guy is gonna say let default is this. And then we're going to say some value. Otherwise, none. And hopefully we can get this to compile, or to, there we go. Now it's formatted, and we can say builder, adder, default. Like that. And so that's just generally what it's going to look like. And then here, we're actually going to say let s is input, or I get it is a stir lit, or lit stir, for string literal, and we're gonna say input dot parse, like so. So now we get the string literal, and s dot value Oh, this is a little bit annoying because we can say parse. What does parse do? Parse. Oh, that's interesting. So I have full syntax highlighting right now, but not when I do that. That's weird. That's a little bit of a bug in my my configuration, it seems. That's fine. So parse the syntax tree node from the current blah blah blah. Okay, so yeah, I want to parse it. What does it return? It returns a T. Fuck. What is it that I actually want? I want an expression, which is actually super handy because that means I can just say expression here and here. And that means this can be an expression. And then I almost kind of want to cheat a little bit and just create a string literal here as well. Like I want the expression, but I don't want to like have to manually build it. So I think I'm gonna say or wait, can I do this? Let's see, can I say quote dot parse? Like I want token string parse is a thing, but that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a way to parse a token stream into that. Can I use what is it? It's syn parse. What does parse quote do? Quote macro, but uses type info. Oh, okay, that's exactly what I want. Yeah, that is literally just exactly what I want. Okay. So I think this is the code which gets us that default value, right? So first of all, we check for an identifier. If we don't get the identifier, we error. That's not quite what we should do. We should probably just, yeah, we should probably say if input peak token or syn ident, then we do all of this. Otherwise, we say none. What does this none come from? Right, so if this is a default, then we do that. We can say that. Say let default is this. And that gives us the same thing, except now we don't error if we don't have an identifier. Which is okay. I think it's okay if we don't have an ident. Okay, so now we actually need to use this value. And we can do so. Actually, here, let's say adder is a builder adder. Okay, that was weird. Right, we can do so. Or I guess we need to finish doing this. What is missing here? Builder adder. Right, so we need to say builder adder is this. And really, we don't care about any of that. We can specify this type. And that needs a question mark. What is the error type here? The error type is a syn error. So let's just use that here. Okay. And then this none needs to be replaced with builder adder default. And for now, we can just derive default. Like so. And then this needs to be a question mark. And this needs to be builder, or I guess adder is what I called it. Okay. What are you complaining about? E here is it needs to be 2 compile error. Great. So now we should continue to be working exactly as we did before. And actually, something else we can do is we can debug the fields. So if we cargo R, no, we need to borrow them. And then if we look at them, we'll see a bunch of stuff. Oh, it's a token stream. That's not the right thing to be debugging. Want to debug fields named. Like this. Unsatisfied trait bounds. Oh, which does not, builder field doesn't. Derive debug. And debug. And then, expression can't be debug. Of course it can't be. That's fantastic. Because of that, it doesn't even matter. But I think we should have the right structure now. Okay, so to actually deal with this, we need to change the way that the builder does the default value. So here. And the interesting aspect of this is that if it's an option, or if we have a default value, the type does not need to be an option, right? So like here, this doesn't need to be an option. It can literally just be the type directly. So what I think we should do, although actually thinking about that, that could be inefficient if the default value requires some sort of like allocation or something like that. So I think really what we should do is keep it be an option. And then at the end, if it's a default value, then this okay or just gets replaced with, what does it get replaced with? It becomes unwrap or, and then the value. So let's do it that way. And that way we don't have to allocate if we don't need to. But in order to do that, we need to say let build fields is going to be fields named dot iter map. We're going to take the field. Do we need to join this with anything? We need to join this with build error variance, or zip it rather. So it's going to be build error variance dot iter. This gives us the field and the build for the error, like so. And then in here we're going to return a quote, which is going to be field and self.field.okay or build error like this. And it's not actually field, it's going to be let name is field dot ident. And that can be done by reference, if I can type. Okay, and then we should be able to replace this here with the build fields. And still keep it comma separated like that. Okay, and if we run this, where are you wanting a question mark? That's one of the a little bit of annoying things with building or writing like a proc macro like this is sometimes the hints are not exactly very good. Like putting a question mark there is not valid. But somewhere, oh yeah, this guy needs a question mark. Cool. So now what we're gonna do is say like if field dot adder default, then we're going to do something, otherwise we're going to do something else like this. And then what we're going to do here, if we have a default, then we're going to say unwrap, or else we're going to say nothing, and we're going to pass in default, and default should be an expression. And so this should just kind of work. And let's find out. So this breaks because we still have this question mark. Okay, so this is working. And if we were to cargo expand like this, we'll see this part actually defaults. So we say unwrap or else core default default. And so now if we don't specify, what are you? Did I? Yeah. If we open the example now, and we skip B, and we save it, or we run it again, cargo R, you'll notice it doesn't panic, but it does set this value to false. And what we can also do here is say like builder default is string new, or I guess string from, what are we going to pass in here? Like foo bar. And if we do this, then we see hello world. But if we don't pass in this, then we get foo bar. And that's perfect. And if we even cargo expand this, you'll notice this unwrap or else calls this, let's do this, calls this string from only if the value is set, meaning that it doesn't allocate this string if we don't need it to, which is perfect. Okay, so the other thing that we don't want, that we do currently have, is field B here. Yeah, so both field B and field C cannot have a missing error, right? So we've got missing field A error here, but the field B and field C errors still exist. So we need to not generate those if they have a default value, just because we don't need the user to have to match on those. So let's come back here, and I think what we're gonna do is under the builder field, we're actually gonna just add the missing error is going to be an identifier. It's gonna be an option ident. And what this is gonna do, it's gonna literally just be if adder dot default dot is sum, then we're gonna say this is none, otherwise, and actually let's say is none. If it's none, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna say sum. We're gonna use that format ident from before, not this one, but this one, and we're gonna put this right here. And instead of f.ident, it's going to be value.ident. Consider using expect. That's fine, we can unwrap here. And this f is also going to be value.ident.unwrap. And we should probably like document these unwraps a little bit, but I think for now it's fine. So it's as ref, as ref. Okay, so adder default here is borrowed after, right, so it's moved here. This is a little bit annoying, but we're gonna just do that. So we don't actually we don't move the adder into this builder field struct until after we've established a missing error. But that's fine. Now here, for build error variants, we're going to filter map to f.missingerror.asRef. Like so. This is no longer a vec of ident, but we can still call it a vec. Actually, we don't really even need that. We can just do... well, we don't actually want to zip on this anymore. Mismatched types, expected struct builder field, found tuple. That's fine. We can fix that by doing that. And then here for this error type, I say let error is field dot missing error expect missing error is set when default is none. Right, because we at the current state of the code, the only time that missing error field is set is when the default is not set. Okay, you seem to be unhappy about something. Right, we're collecting. We don't actually need to collect here. Cannot move out of missing error. That is fine. We can as ref. Okay. So now we should continue working. But now we have a missing field A here, and that is the only variant of this structure, of this error. A thing that I want to do is if we say like default equals 420 here, and if we run this again, you'll notice that this error structure is empty, which means that the call to build cannot fail. And because of that, I kind of want to use a different error here. I think that there's a thing called infallible, which is effectively the never type. Well, this is for convert, or it's specifically in the convert struct. I think it's okay to not do this right now. Ideally, we use this never type. That's the exclamation mark. That means that can never happen. But that does not exist yet. So, or it's nightly only rather. So we're not going to do that, obviously. But that's fine. We'll just keep it as it is, because this is the same type as infallible, and it doesn't need to be explicitly like enumerated. But I think that's okay. It would be so like I do have a thought that we could replace build, or like in the case of having no like an infallible thing, or like a build that cannot fail, we replace this with with literally just an ident instead of like actually handling the error properly. And I don't know if that's better. Like my concern with that would be if we do that and it changes the type that gets returned from build, then it could break a bunch of code by just removing this line. And I don't think that's something that I want to do. So I think the way we have it right now is fine. Okay. So now that that is done, let's do this. So let's remove all of these items. I'm gonna make this pub so it stops complaining. Yeah, I don't care. Clippy, you can shut up. We can just call this X. There we go. Okay, so now we're completely happy. Field B is true. And so now all of our code is good. So I'm going to make a commit here. Just because we're at a decent spot. We've got a builder fully set up. So let's, do I already have a Git repo here? I do. Let's add a readme. Builder. This is a, let's say a simple builder derive structure with, or derive macro with the intention of accomplishing all needs from a builder. And let's do some basic usage. Rust pub struct foo. This is gonna have my field, or I guess field A is gonna be a U32. I mean, we can literally just copy this exact example. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah. And then here, we don't need this debug. We don't need this pub. We can do this. Okay, that looks cool. Let's commit that. Init. Let's just make sure that we don't have anything else in here. Init. And now let's go to GitHub and create a new repository. This is going to be builder. Probably going to come up with a better name for this in the future. I mean, builder is obviously not a very great name, and I guarantee there's already a crate with that. What? There is no way that a crate called builder does not exist. Okay, but it's been yanked. Fantastic. So we just can't use that. Yeah, so we're going to need to come up with a better name. But for now, builder works, and we're going to keep it. So public, add readme, no thank you, none of that stuff. Let's do this. Git remote add origin this. And we can push that. Bam. So now it is public right there. And let's continue working. So the other aspect, or another thing rather, that we can do is we can default any field which is marked as option. Ooh, that is interesting. So you can see how the quote the quote crate and the sin crate will kind of handle the spans largely for you. It shows that this error message, which tells you that you should be using a string instead of an option string, it shows that it was defined here. So actually, if we were to go to definition from here, we get brought back to there. Same thing with B, and same thing with A. And that's just a cool little detail that automatically happens by having all of the spans get mapped to the correct location. Okay, so what is the other thing I'm wanting to do? Right, so we're doing option here. It's a little bit funky in when making a derive macro, because I cannot, as the implementer of the macro, I cannot guarantee that this option is I can't guarantee that this option is the actual standard library option, because one could easily make an enum option themselves, and that just overrides the standard library one. But we're gonna kind of just go out on a limb and just assume that anytime they have an option here, it is standard library option, because I mean, in reality, who renames their options? And if that is specified, then that field is no longer required. So let's go ahead and do that. What we can do is under builder adder. Oh, that is handy. I didn't realize that the identifier implemented, or like allowed comparison with a string. That's super handy. What are we doing? So here, we can check on this type, and so we're gonna say let tie is value.tie.clone. uh, yeah, there's a lot of really handy aspects of the of just the way that tokens tend to be managed in these crates. That gives you a lot of nice and mildly unexpected features. Sometimes they're kind of a pain to do if that's not the behavior that you want, but generally it's good enough that it's just quite handy. So I don't actually know how to interact with this type. So let's go to sin and pull up the type. It's not that, it's the enum. Right. Okay, so we're gonna have to do this. It should be an, what is it gonna be? A path, I think? What is Q self? Qualified path. Okay. So we're just gonna say path. And we're gonna allow, I think we're probably gonna let's allow standard option, and just option. And if either of those are specified as the path, then we'll use that. So if tie dot, or match tie, and we're gonna match only the path. That's the only part we care about. Everything else is going to just do nothing. And what is a type path? So if path dot path, why is path a field? Oh, okay. Dot is ident option, or path dot can I get just the last an error if this path is not a single ident? Can I get just the last segment of the path? So I mean, I can do that, but I don't really care for that. Can I, what do I have any cool like comparisons? What is get ident? Oh, just get it if it's a single ident. Okay. So we've got from path for meta. What is meta? Oh, that's, I don't care about that. So we don't have any sort of comparison or anything. That's a little bit annoying. Unpunctuated, we could get like a, what, do we have anything unpunctuated for comparisons? Not really. I think what we'll do is just only allow option. I don't think it super matters. So I think it's fine to just only do it if it's option. Yeah. So now we need to do a little bit of some special handling, right? So we don't want, there are some certain aspects of this that we just want to skip. Like we don't need to wrap this in an option if it's already optional, or sort of. So we could get the inner type and use that as type. In fact, that's what we're gonna need to do. So we want to keep this as an option, but if it is optional, actually, you know what we can do? Where are we? We are right. Yeah, right here. If we're optional, then we can say adder default. There's insert. Although insert is kind of unnecessary, but it's fine. We'll use that. And then what we're gonna do is we're just gonna insert this guy. This is found to be of type mutable expression. Oh, why are you returning a value? I don't want that. We're gonna do that. Cannot mutate an immutable value adder. That's fine, you are mutable. Path is gonna be replaced with ref, that's fine. Use let underscore. Okay, that's fine. We can say is sum. Like that. Okay, so that sets the default. But then what we also need is to get the inner type, so like within the generics. And I think to do that, we can say path.qself dot, wait, no, it's not going to be that. How do you get the generics? What is a type group? This might be a little bit. A type contained within invisible delimiters. LM, what is the group? A non-delimited group. What do you mean it's a box type? Parenthesized type equivalent to the inner type. How are you gonna be like really annoying to actually parse that? I hope not. Let's see. Oh, I don't actually think a type path is what we want. Honestly, none of this stuff really looks like what we want. Type path is like the most, but none of this has like generics. How do I handle generics? Right, so this is for qualified, but I'm not qualified. I'm interesting. Type parent. This isn't really what we're looking for. What is angle bracketed generic arguments? What? Let's see. Okay. So under value, what is value? Value is a field. Let's see what field has. So field has adders, viz, mutability, ident, colon type, and colon token and type. Okay. If we look at the type, that just gets us to this enum that we already have. And none of this has anything about a generic. Can I do this, please? Thank you. This is interesting. Let's see, what happens if we look up generic? Part of the path segment, you think? Can we debug this? That would be super cool. Debug the path. Is there, wasn't there like I think there's a feature for printing, or for being able to print. Yeah, you create feature extra takes. Cargo toml under, what is this? Sin version is that. We're going to say features is extra traits. Like that. So if we cargo our example, we get some issues, but that's apparently a big enough deal. Okay, let's I guess let's fix that issue. Wait, do we never get... Oh, okay, so it's not... Okay, that's interesting. So option... Oh, it's part of the path... Okay, okay, I see. So it's the path segment, has the ident and the arguments. That makes a lot more sense, actually. Thank you. Although, why is this unhappy? I guess maybe is ident doesn't like when you have generics. The first segment has... Interesting. Okay, that's fine. Go away. Dot ident is option. Or I guess it has to be segments. Last dot is sum and s ident is option. We say paths, path segments last unwrap. We can just say that this is checked in guard condition. And this is going to be the option. And really, I think what we can do here is just say and path segments length is 1. Just so that we only accept option, and like if they want to have like a qualified in some way like foo, then we don't try to handle that. Okay, so option here is a path segment, which gives us option dot generics arguments, and this is going to be, what is this going to be? So we have is none is empty. What is this under path segment? With path arguments. Oh, it's an enum. Of course it is. Let's match option arguments. What do you have? So you have none. What is parenthesize? Oh, parenthesize is for that. That's fine. So none. Let's do this. So none or parenthesized is just going to say break on tick X. And then finally, we're going to add this. What is, oh, this needs to be sin path arguments none. Like that. Did parenthesize have another something? No, but we can say that. And then here, that is quite a long type name. This has args, which is a generic argument. Okay. So we'll say args. Args.args.first. Actually, we're going to say let sum first. I guess arg is this Otherwise, we're going to break on X. And arg now is a generic argument. I also want to say if args len is not equal to 1, then we're going to break on X. Each of these are kind of the case where we're probably not using the option that's built in for whatever reason, so let's just pretend like it's not what we want it to be. Unexpected token. Oh, that is a semicolon. And really this can go before. Actually, even better, we can say underscore is going to be break on tick X, and then this one is going to be if args len is 1. Can I do this? If let guards are experimental. Damn, that'd be cool. Okay, so we have arg here, which is the generic argument that we need. And in here we get, we have to assert that it's also a type, which we can do by doing generic argument type arg. So now we have our type. Fantastic. We can say, let's just make this mutable. Let's be a little bit easy on ourselves and just make this mutable and say tie is arg. Fuck, I shouldn't have to clone this. But I'm doing everything by reference, which means I kind of do. Fine, we'll do this. Okay, so this needs to be this. This needs to be this. What are you complaining about right now? Tie doesn't exist, obviously. You need to be a semicolon. And now we need to actually handle all of this stuff. So break X here is going to have value tie clone. So is this guy. And then if we get through all of that, then this is going to be arg.clone. And this is going to be value.tie. Okay, expected type found unit. Where? Here. That's fine. Like that. And you need a semicolon. And you need to be your clone. That's fine. You're a reference. And then you're also a reference. And looks like we are actually good. I want to say allow unused. Because we'll use that. Will we use that? I don't really see a need to use that. But I want to allow it. Or I want to keep it for now. That's fine. Okay, so now that we have this parsed, we need to actually... Do we actually need to do anything with it? Wait a minute. If we go to examples. So arguments to this method are incorrect. We do have an issue up here. Expected enum string, option string, not string. It's cargo R. Cargo R example simple. Let's cargo expand this. Expand. where are we getting an option? So right now we're using default here. Actually, let's, instead of doing that, let's, where are we doing that? We're doing that right here. We can use core option none instead, just to be a little bit more explicit about what's happening. And theoretically, we could also just remove this unwrap or else none, but I don't see much of a need to do that or a reason to do that. So we're gonna just leave it for now at least. Right, so we're having an issue. Foo is an option, whatever. Foo builder is an option string. Oh, actually, no, you know what? This unwrap or else does need to be removed because we need to... We can't have a none. Or we can't have an option. Sorry, that is completely wrong. We can't have a string because we still need it to be an option. Okay. So let's just add a field here for like wrapped option. This is just a Boolean. And then we're gonna say tie and wrapped option. Like so. Like that. And then here we can just literally say wrapped option. Great. And then whenever we do the unwrap or else, we can check first if field wrapped option, then we're gonna say literally just use that item, and this needs to be else, like so. We do this. Now we literally just directly use self.field.c. Okay. We run this, we get the default, or we get some here because we set it, but then if we don't set it, then we should get the none. Perfect. Okay, so I want to do one more thing, and then I think we're going to wrap it up for today. And that one last thing is I want to do a similar thing for option, but instead I want to use vec. Or not vec, we'll do vec at a different point. But I want to add, what is it called? Builder into, which will take any type which can be turned into an U32. But actually, before we do that, let's take like a 2-minute break, and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. So we're gonna do the into, and then wrap things up for the night. So for the into, we're gonna do kind of the same thing that we did here, except now we need to be able to parse multiple of the attributes. And so to do that, I think it's really just gonna be a list here, or a loop here. Sorry. If you can't tell, I'm getting a little bit tired. But that's fine. We can do this. And then what I want to do, or not loop, damn it, while. And then what we're going to do here is let mute out is builder adder default. And then we'll say, instead of doing all of this, we'll literally just say out dot default is this. And then here we'll return out. Like that. And then here we can, I don't think we can match. Like, I don't think this will work. Yeah, because it match does a different thing than just the equal trait does. So we will have to manually do else if ident is what did I say it would be? Into. Let me do this. Since we're also doing this, I kind of want to say if out.default.is sum, then I want to return sin error new at ident.span with the message being it's not really a definition. I guess like default may only be used once. It's not sim. Okay, and you're annoying because you need a question mark, except you also need to be an error. Okay, so then we do that, and then here we're gonna say into, and into is just gonna be a boolean. And it's complaining a little bit, but that's fine. We're about to fix that. We can just do this. Actually, we don't even care about any of this. Into is true. Okay. And that should actually handle all of that parsing. And now let's come down here. And what we're going to do for this is, if we're using into, then when we generate this function, we're going to change this parameter just a little bit. So, in fact, we'll just redo. No, let's do let source is if f adder into, then we're going to say quote, and it should literally just be impl into tie. Otherwise, we're just going to use tie to token stream, and then let I guess usage value is if, you know what we can even do, we can do super fancy stuff like a tuple. And we can say this and quote into of ident by reference? No. like that. And then this one is just going to be ident.toToken, like so. And then now instead of using tie, we're going to use source. Instead of ident here, we're going to use value. Okay, from I32 is not supported for our U32. So that is a little bit of an annoying aspect of this. I don't know if there's a nicer way to deal with this. Yeah, like I can't think of a nicer way to like allow integer coercion here, but it's fine. We'll just like okay, so really the big thing is for this string. Because now we can specify that. And that's just a nicer interface. So if we run our example, we get hello world. And if we expand this, we can see that this accepts anything which can be turned into a string, and then it calls into on that string. A thing to think about actually is this into needs to be fully qualified. We do rust into standard convert, because there's the case of into is overridden by the consumer, which is a really annoying case to think about, but we really do have to think about it. And actually, same thing here for result. That should be in result, I think. Why did I just look up rust? Result is in core, result. Same thing here. Core, default. This is the same thing. It is an interesting note, actually. Thus far, this entire library should work in no std environments. At runtime, mind you, not compile time. We still use things like vectors here, but that generally doesn't matter. I don't see any reason why this code would not work in like a no std environment, which is a little cool aspect, I think. Okay, I think that's gonna wrap it up for today. We got a lot done. Let me push these changes. I have this guy again. What are our changes? So we added option wrapping and the into feature. Option wrapping and into. So we can push that. And did I close it? I must have done this guy. And bam. So now we've got that. And we have 270 lines of proc macro code. Hell yeah. Cool. And this is working pretty well. I think we'll do at least one more stream where we're working on this. I don't have a huge list of features I want to add. Mostly just like random ideas. But yeah, that's going to be it for today. Thank you for coming, and I'll see you next time.